What's good, NBA family, and welcome back to another video. Today's Friday, June 28th, and just yesterday we seen the NBA draft officially wrap up. And whether you think this draft class was weak or not, something that we all have to admit is that this draft class made history. I mean, second time in NBA history that the top two picks had no college experience. The last time was 2003 with LeBron and Darko, but first time in NBA history that those top two picks were international players. This draft also had 6 lottery picks that had no college experience, most of all time. Last time was 2001, with 4 players who came straight out of high school. And this draft had Bronny James get selected to the Lakers, making the first father and son duo in NBA history. So, needless to say, whether you like it or not, one way or another, this draft is gonna go down in history, you guys. And I knew I had to have some type of coverage on it. And me personally, guys, I'm gonna be honest. I'm more of an NBA guy. I'm gonna be real. I watch every team in the NBA. I try to watch every single game, and that's a lot of work. So I don't really get to too much college basketball. I don't really get to too much overseas basketball. But that's exactly why we have on who we have on today, man. We have a very special, a esteemed guest. Not only is he a great friend of mine, man, but he is also an NBA draft analyst expert. He spent hours watching film on these guys, following some of these guys since literally they've been in high school. So my guy Stone has tons of knowledge to share with me and with us today. So that's exactly what we're going to get into today, you guys. This is a recap of the NBA 2024 draft. We're going to talk about the best players to the most underrated players to even some that Stone don't believe in. But let me go ahead and introduce my boy, my homie, Stone Hanson. My dog, how you doing?
Good. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
I'm excited to talk about the draft and get to talk with you. It's been a while.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It has been some time. And for the family out there, man, I will link all of Stone's social media right there, or other side, right there, right under his little square right there, man. So make sure you guys go show him some love. But let's go ahead and stop wasting time. Let's get straight into it. So, Stone, I gotta start with, I guess, the biggest overarching question, right? So we don't have to, dive crazy into this, but because we'll get into this with the questions, right? I have a whole bunch of questions that we'll get into, but overall, like, what were your thoughts of this draft? I know a lot of people were saying, "Oh, this is a weak draft." Like, do you believe that this is a weak draft, or like, just give me your overall thoughts on this draft?
Yeah, most definitely. This is my ninth time or ninth year covering the draft, and this was by far the weakest, I would say, in that time frame. Um, a lot of people point to the star power and all that. Last year was exceptional. You're not going to get a Wemby really in any draft class, and so it's tough to be the um encore to that as a draft. But yeah, there's still good players in every draft. I think people are missing that at some points where there's still talent to be had. It's just there's less shots at that in this draft. I thought the list of draftable players was probably 20 players less than it was last year in terms of guys that are sort of deserving of an full-time contract. And I think that the star power, while it was lacking, the guys at the top are still going to be good players. It's not like you're drafting players that are going to be seventh or eighth men at the very top. So I think there's still good players to be had. It's just you're not quite getting that generational type talent.
Yeah, yeah, and I think the way you kicked it off is great, right? It's like it's really hard to follow up after Wemby. It's like we just seen Wemby potentially put up not potentially, he did put up a Rookie of the Year season, potentially put up a Defensive Player of the Year season. Absolutely just changed the game, and I mean, it's past the numbers with him. It's the eye test. Like, I constantly think of that one play, which I believe it was against the Rockets or the Spurs, where they had like a 3-on-1 fast break, and
Mm.
he's the only one back, and he guarded like 3 players at once because of his length. So I feel you, man. It's very hard for anybody to follow up that draft, but I just wanted to get your thoughts on that. And me personally, I agree. I think that it'll be a lot more just like solid role players that can contribute in this league, but no star that can absolutely take over like a Wimby or like a Bron or just generational talent type players. But there definitely are some good players. So let's go ahead and get into some of these questions here, Stone. Let me go ahead and ask you this, Stone. who is the best player in this draft, regardless of the draft pick? Like, I know some people will say the number one overall draft pick is the best player, but is that to you or is it somebody else?
Yeah, to me it's not. To me, it's Ron Holland was my top guy in this class. I think that he is a really strong driver, one of the strongest drivers and rim pressure guys in this entire class. I believe in the shot more than a lot of people. That's probably the biggest disconnect as to why he's not viewed the way I view him across, sort of all draft circles. But I think he's a really good defender, defensive playmaker who reads the court really well on both ends. The shot is going to take time. I don't think it's going to immediately translate, but I do think it could get to the point of being serviceable. And when that happens, I think it opens up a lot of passing that he has shown the ability to see. He generates tons of power from his legs on the way to the rim, and because of that, can really put a lot of pressure and be sort of a free throw generating machine at times too. I think that he's just a really solid bet to be a highly productive guy in the NBA.
Dude, Stone, you know what's crazy is Ron Holland is 18 years old. Ron Holland is 18 years old. He was born in 2005. Like, that's crazy to me. And I always talk about this when I talk about the draft, but when I was young, I mean, I played basketball my whole life. So my goal was to make it to the NBA. You know what I'm saying? Clearly didn't happen. But when I was young, I'd watch the draft and I'd be like, wow, like, look at these dudes, look at these grown-ups, like, they're getting drafted. Now I'm 25 years old and I'm watching these 18-year-olds get drafted. Ron Holland was born in 2005. I remember what I was doing in 2005. That's crazy, man. But credit to Ron Holland. And then, just a little bit on that. I mean, Ron Holland, he showed in the G League that he is one of those prolific scorers. We're gonna see, because he did go to the Pistons. We do want to see how that's gonna work out. And I mean, that franchise right now was just in frenzies. I mean, they brought Monty Williams to one of the largest paid contracts and then let him go about a season or two later. So I hope he gets put in the right position to contribute like right away. But love that answer. And if you want to give anyone else, please do. Please hop in. But you
Yeah.
have anyone for me? Talk to me.
No, it was pretty much just him in his own tier for me in this class. I thought he stood out. Not everyone is on the same page as me, but to me, when I watched him, he was the clear top guy to me in this class.
Okay, I like that. All right, so then let's keep it pushing here, and let's get to the next question here, and that is, Stone, what was the biggest surprise of this NBA draft to you?
Yeah, so it's a little different for me because this is not like any sort of flex or anything, but I know a couple of picks that are going to happen before they happen with some people that work for different agencies or what have you. So some of the picks I know are coming down the pipeline, and I am not that surprised. So it was difficult for me to find an answer, but the one team that is tough for me to get much of a read on and I didn't see coming was actually Ron Holland. I want to give you a different answer, but he is the same guy. I didn't see that coming. I thought that he would be falling much lower than 5, and I think if the Pistons didn't take him, he would have fell quite a bit. But they saw Trajan Langdon, who they just recently hired, has made a lot of good moves, and I think it's not the best fit for him, but that high up in the draft, I think you just take the best talent available, and he seems to have been on that same page, and he took it. And you have free agency, you have trades for a reason. You can sort of build your team after that, but I think that he took what he thought was the best player available, and I didn't think that anybody else would view Ron in that way that high up in the draft. So I was surprised by that pick.
You're just surprised about how far he dropped.
How high he went,
How high
actually,
he
because
went.
he went
Okay.
at 5. Yeah, I thought he would be falling close to 10 or even below that possibly.
Wow. Okay. Okay. Well, hey, maybe the Detroit Pistons just struck on some gold. Maybe they've been following the Twitter. Maybe they've been following Stone Hanson Twitter. So they were like, you know what? Let's take him at 5,
I
man.
hope
But
so.
I hope hey, and you know what, Stone, from your takes out there, I'm sure they are. I'm sure they are, man. But all right, Stone. So I'm right there with you on that. Let's keep it pushing here, and this is one I really want to get into here with you, and that is, who is going to be able to contribute right away the most?
Yeah, that's interesting. It's a little tough
It's a tough one.
because we don't have free agency yet, so we don't know
Hmm.
totality wise what teams are going to look like across their rosters. Uh, the name I came up with for this was I thought Devin Carter for the Kings is someone that can really contribute right away. And right away, you saw that they have some level of faith in him in a rotation where they traded Davion Mitchell and Sasha Vezenkov away, two guys that were in the rotation for them and sort of play, in that guard wing sort of role. And they moved on right away after they drafted Devin Carter. Uh, I think that he is just a guy who leads to winning, great defender, and I think because of that defense and the lack of perimeter defense that outside of him the Kings kind of have, that he's going to be able to find his way into the rotation pretty quickly and early on and provide uh, just a good bit of winning basketball for them. Production wise, like I think who's going to put the best numbers up or the earliest on in their career, I think it's probably somebody like Alex Sarr, who doesn't have a lot of competition ahead of him on the Wizards for that center position. I think that he's going to get decent numbers in his rookie year and probably be productive. But in terms of who helps winning the most early on, I would probably peg that as Devin Carter.
I like that. I like that a lot. I mean, a little bit selfishly so. I don't like it because I wanted the Lakers to be able to pick Devin Carter if he was still on the board. But that's not, that's not what we're here to talk about right now. But to give you a little bit of a different perspective, the player who I think is actually going to be able to contribute right away is actually Rob Dillingham, who ended up getting drafted by the Spurs or traded to the Timberwolves. And the reason why I think that he's going to be able to just contribute so much is like, I understand Rob is a small guard. He's 6'1", but he has an elite offensive bag. Like in those bags that I think will translate to the NBA, right? Similar to the Tyrese Maxey's, similar to really any of these Kentucky guards that went to Kentucky and just have elite offensive bags. He can score at all three levels. I do think that he needs to start working a little bit more on his playmaking, especially coming on to the Timberwolves. But I think that the role that he's coming into the Timberwolves is not to be the guy. Like they got their guy. Like they're looking for pieces that fit, pieces that is what they need. And I think what they needed was a player off the bench who can just be a microwave. Just come off the bench and we don't need to know offensive play. Like give me the ball, watch out, pick and roll, or just a single ISO. And I think that Rob will be able to do that. Come off the bench, and even if he has to kind of be that point guard for when Mike Conley's out, I think that him having great leadership from that entire team, and especially a true vet point guard like Mike Conley, I think will be huge. And I think it'll help him. So I'm going with Rob here on most able to contribute right away.
Yeah, that's a totally fair pick.
Okay. All right. All right. So let's keep it pushing here. And let's get to the question everybody wants to know. We always talk about this every season or every year when it comes to the draft. And that is, who is the biggest bust in this draft? Or who do you believe will be the biggest bust in this draft?
I believe it to be Tijan Salon, who the Hornets took at
Mm-hmm.
6. Uh, I figured he'd go this high. I personally, this is like the biggest uh, misunderstanding, or I guess disconnect I have with those who are more mainstream. I don't think that Salon is really an NBA prospect. Like I wouldn't have drafted him, to be honest. Like I just don't think he's an NBA player. People see upside. He has a fantastic frame, super young, uh, really strong, high motor guy. To me, he just does not have anything near like NBA level skills with the basketball. And I think that to bet on somebody like that, especially going to a place that struggles to develop talent like the Hornets with projects historically, is just, I don't really view it. I hope he proves me wrong. I think he's a fun basketball player if everything comes together, but I just do not see. This is to me one of the easier in the past multiple years guys to peg as the quote unquote bust getting picked that high. I think it's to me pretty clear.
Okay, so we remember in the beginning when I said like, no, I don't really watch much college basketball, much overseas or whatnot. So it was kind of hard for me to answer this one, and this might be taken as a hot take. I'm not gonna lie, because he's a good player, but I just think that the team that this guy got drafted to and the skill set that he does not have right now, it's kind of needed in his role, and that is Stephon Castle, man, the Spurs draft pick. He was taken pretty high up, and he's a good player, a good solid 6'6" wing. He's very physical. He's able to really get to the hoop aggressively, but his shooting is really a project, and it's lacking. I mean, it's lacking. I'm pretty sure he shot like 29% from the 3-point line last season. Just wasn't very effective. And I think that pairing him up with Wemby, and this is the exact same thing I said about Ben Simmons, right? It's like you cannot have a point guard who cannot shoot run a pick and roll with your generational big, because the defenses are just going to force you to shoot and just go double the big, and now your offense is going to kind of stall out. Now, I'm not saying he can't develop a jumper. There's a lot of players in the league that have developed a jumper, but I'm just saying, um, for me to, because I already don't watch too much of this, overseas and college hoops, didn't have too much to go off this on. But from that, I did see, and I think that he's going to need to be a knockdown shooter playing with Wemby, because you have to force the defenses to decide: are you going to roll with Wemby to the hoop and leave me open, and I'm going to kill you like that, or are you going to go? Are you going to try to play this, 2-man, and then once you play the 2-man, I'm throwing a lob to Wemby every single time. So that's what I'm going to go with that. But I hope he does end up working out, because I think that'll be a great pairing there for Wemby. Do you have anything to add to that, my brother?
Not really. I'm not a huge Castle guy either. And I think the best role for him is as a wing. I think he's big enough to be a smaller wing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't really view him as a point guard either. I know he does. And I think I have the fear that the Spurs do too. And I think that that is not an ideal developmental context to put him in, but we'll see how it works out.
Absolutely. Right there with you, my brother. Let's keep it pushing here. And that is Stone. Who is the most slept on player in this draft?
I would say Jalen Tyson for me.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, I like him quite a bit. He's someone I've followed 4 or 5 years now since his high school days. I think that he's just a guy who leads to win basketball. Um, has a very His shot has come a long way. He has really deep range, very strong. He can attack as like a secondary initiator guy. He's not going to break down defenses from a standstill, but once they are broken down, I think he makes the most of it. Defensively is solid on ball. Off ball still needs a little bit of work, but the Cavs have been searching for some sort of two-way wing in their starting lineup for a long time. Obviously, they've gone through multiple guys with Okoro, who's really good defensively, doesn't quite provide enough offensively for them, and then Strus is the opposite way. They're still searching for that guy, and I have the hope that Jalen Tyson can be that for them. Maybe not in his rookie year, but down the line. And I think that he's somebody that's going to be just a really valuable rotation player for a long time.
All right, Stone. Here you go. Look, I like that so much that was my exact answer. And you know what else is funny? I live in California, so I actually went to go see the Cal Berkeley versus USC game against Bronny. You know what I'm saying, versus Cal. And we'll get into Bronny a little bit later in the episode. So if you want to hear about that, just make sure to stay tuned. But when I seen when I seen Jalen Tyson, I didn't know who he was prior to it, right? Prior to coming to the game. The only player I knew was about Isaiah Collier and Bronny, but that's because, like I said, I don't keep up with much college basketball. But after I left that game, I was telling everybody, I was like, Jalen Tyson is that guy. He was doing everything you could possibly think of on the court. I'm talking about diving on loose balls, going and playing defense against the other team's best players, hustling for second chance rebounds, just doing everything, right? And I love how you said, that glue guy, like that two-way wing for the Cavs. And that's kind of exactly what the Cavs were looking for. It might be a little bit too late, because Donovan Mitchell might be out the door no matter what. But if it's not too late, if you know what I'm saying, if Donovan Mitchell can get convinced, I would say, this could really work out, because I just think that he's one of those guys who, he doesn't need the ball to be effective. Like, he can affect the game in so many other ways besides having the ball in his hands. And for the Cavs, you need the ball in two players' hands: Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell. And if Donovan Mitchell goes, and maybe Evan Mobley. But I think that, adding a player like this is that perfect piece to add to their team. So
I
let's
agree.
see let's see how that goes, man. Big time player, and I like his ponytail too. So
Yeah, he's had that for years. Yeah.
yeah. See, I don't know. I only found out about him that day that USC
Mm.
played Cal. I was like, man, he's nice.
Yeah, I've liked him for a long time, but he hasn't. I mean, he didn't really pop until this year, and I don't think even I didn't really expect him to play to this level this year. So it was a pleasant surprise.
All right. Let's keep it pushing here. Stone. Who is the highest risk in this NBA draft? This is kind of a hard question, to
Yeah,
be
this is
honest.
a hard question. It's kind of I wanted to say Salon, but it's sort of a separate deal. So I'll go
Mm,
with Khalil Ware here for the Heat at 15. It's still a relatively high pick, so I think there's a decent amount of risk involved. He's someone that I think it like I would understand people that have him top 5 because he has an insane natural skill set and just God-given gifts athletically, as a big who can really move like a gazelle and is super fluid athlete, super twitchy athlete who could jump very quickly off the ground, long, shows shooting touch, but he lacks so much awareness that I had him like 15 spots lower than where he got picked, where he just really lacks the processing skills to know where to be on the court a lot of the time, especially defensively and then offensively. He'll take some shots that might seem open, and then he takes a minute to process it, and those shots are no longer open by the time he releases it. So, but if there's any team that can fix those things with him, it is the Miami Heat. So the risk is that none of that ever comes to fruition, and he just is sort of this huge ball of skills that doesn't really come to fruition and be able to lead to winning basketball. But if there's a team that can make that work, I think it is the Heat. So that's the reward of it. So he's a risky player in that sense, but I do like the fit of where he went.
okay. Okay. I like that. Yeah. See, honestly, I was struggling to figure out who I'd go with on this one. I was more thinking, like injury and maybe some injury prone players or whatnot, but definitely like that pick a lot. But what I want to know is, this is a question I was really excited to ask you: is who out of this draft is a diamond in the rough? And when I say a diamond in the rough, like, not just, oh, he slept on, like, I'm talking like a Jalen Brunson, a Nikola Jokic, right? Of where you legitimately have a chance of becoming a franchise player, a key cornerstone, but 99% of the world didn't see it. You got drafted when there was a Taco Bell commercial, So who is there a diamond in the rough in this draft to you?
So I don't think that in the second round there's a guy that is of that caliber. And just to give people context, like in the past 35 years, I think only 2% of players drafted in the second round have ever made an all-star game. So it is extremely rare to be able to get to that level if you're taking that far. But a guy who doesn't quite meet your second round criteria, but he was close, was he was drafted 29th, I think, was Isaiah Collier.
Mhm.
That's who I went with just because I didn't think there was a second round guy that is near that. But I think Collier is somebody that, even though he's taken 29th, I had him top 3 on my board. I think that he
Top
is
three?
someone, yeah, I was
Damn,
very high
that's
on him.
crazy. No, I like
Yeah.
Collier, but that's a big drop. But keep going.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
big
Go ahead.
drop for sure. I think he's an insane rim advantage creator, rim pressure guy. He can really get into the paint at will. Like he
Hmm.
doesn't need a screen to do it. And I thought that he is uh, really put in a bad context at USC where it just didn't maximize his skill set. I think he's a really good passer. Wasn't able to show it as much because the spacing was terrible. I think that he's really strong as a finisher. He's built like a bowling ball, so contact doesn't affect him. I think he can be someone who is like an all-star level point guard. multi-time all-star level point guard. I'm not saying he'll get there definitively, but I
Mhm.
think he has that sort of upside, and I don't think really anybody else did past him. So that's the guy I would go with.
Okay, I like that. And another story time from when I was at the USC and Cal game. USC was down in like I think 2-3 minutes left. He absolutely just took over. They still ended up losing the game. You know what I'm saying? Credit to Jalen Tyson and the Cal team, but he was just taking over. And I like that point that you bring up. And this is what I'm telling you guys, man. You guys got to check my guy Stone out. Like his analysis is right on point. That's exactly what he was doing. He was just getting to the rim, getting to the hoop, and either getting fouled and going to the free throw line or finishing over somebody or trying to put somebody in the rim. So man, I really like that pick. He in my opinion, I mean I think in everyone's opinion was by far the best player at USC. He was definitely from the games that I seen their go-to guy. So love that pick. But let's go ahead and keep it pushing and let's get to our next question here. And that is Stone, who would you say lost the NBA draft? Is the biggest loser out of the NBA draft? Who is it to you?
There's two teams that come to mind for me, and it's two teams that most people would not typically have as an answer, but I'm going to go with the Thunder and the Spurs here. I'm in agreement with you with Castle, where I think that I had him like a 20th on my board.
Mhm.
So the value was way higher than what I would have done. And I think they'll put him in a role that doesn't quite suit him. I didn't like their second round pick with Juan Nunez, who's somebody that can't really get to the rim, not a great shooter and a terrible defender, but he's an insane passer. But when you can't really shoot and get to the rim, those passing attempts are a lot more limited. Not a guy I would have drafted, and so I didn't love that pick either. And then with the Thunder, I'm extremely low on Topic. Again, I have concerns with him as a rim pressure guy, as a shooter and a defender. And if you're putting somebody in a primary point guard role, I think those questions are amplified. And then I did not really like their Dylan Jones. I had maybe 20 spots lower on my board. I still probably would have taken him in the second round, but getting back into the first to take him, I thought was too high for my liking. He dominated against really bad competition, but he is older. I think defensively, it's hard to figure out where he fits. I think he can be okay, but it's going to take specific matchups. And I don't think he can get to the rim to the same degree he did against the poor competition that he played. And then they took AJ Mitchell, who I didn't have as draftable. I know a lot of guys liked him. I know a lot of people like him as a second round guy. Um, he's really small. He played against competition again that's probably comparable to like Division II basketball at UC Santa Barbara. And he's smaller, has doesn't really have any explosion as a finisher around the rim, so I think it's going to be tough for him to finish. The shot is really solid. The passing, I think, is okay, but I think it's going to get limited by how length affects him. So I didn't really like any of the picks either team made, and for me, they are the two biggest losers who I generally have as like the two biggest winners.
I like that. I like that a lot. And I like it so much that you convinced me, to be honest. At first, I originally had the Bucks, to be honest with you, only because, I watch a whole lot of like off-season runs and Rico Hines. And I know AJ Johnson. He's a good basketball player. I'm not trying to dispute that. But like being a good basketball player and being good in the NBA is like two different things. And I just don't think he's ready for that just yet. And they took him at the 23 the 23rd pick, bro. There were still players like Isaiah Collier on the board. You mentioned that Kyle Flipowaski or whatever guy. There was just so many people on the board still that I think that it just I you could have took a pick that made a little bit more sense and helped in winning now. Because I don't know why. Like, are you wanting Dame and Giannis to wait the next 2-3 years, 4 or 5 years? Like, I don't think you have time to make projection picks. You got to make picks that make sense, in the moment. And that's what I originally had, but absolutely, after everything you spieled off, 100% have the Spurs as probably one of the biggest losers of this draft, to be honest
Yeah,
with you.
the Bucks one was very confused, and I like AJ Johnson probably more than a lot of people, but
He looks 15 years old, which is insane. It's
yeah,
insane. When
yeah.
he went up there, I was like, can we like check this guy's ID or
Him and
something?
Johnny Furphy, yeah.
Dude, it was
Um,
crazy. I That made
yeah,
me feel even worse about myself than I already did seeing these damn kids getting drafted.
yeah, I know it's wild. And his coaches now are Darvin Ham and Doc Rivers, who notably like hate rookies. So
Hmm.
it's going to be hard for him to get the reps that he needs to develop when neither coach is probably going to have a lot of belief in him. So we'll see how it goes. I like him, but I think this is a really bad context for him.
Okay. What about the other side, my brother? Who would you say won the NBA draft?
Who would I say won? I think two of the biggest winners for me were the Sacramento Kings and the Utah Jazz. Um, I know everyone wants me to say the Lakers. I think the Lakers did really well. I wouldn't have taken Bronny at 55. I don't think it makes that big a difference that we did. But I
We can
think
get into that after. We can get into that.
yeah, yeah, but I think the Kings and the Jazz sort of hit all their picks across the board, which was sort of the difference maker for me. Where I liked their second round picks a lot, as well as their first round picks. We talked about the Jazz already. They also took Cody Williams on top of Collier, and then Filipowski, who fell for some pretty ridiculous reasons. And then with the um, Kings, I already talked about Carter. I think he's a really impactful player immediately, rotation
Mhm.
guy, and they're guys that they took as undrafted free agents. I had Isaiah Crawford like 13th on my board because I think he's a really another guy who is an immediately impactful rotation player, can help in so many different ways as a shooter and as someone who can defend across the court positionally. So I really liked their picks. From the top of the draft to the very end of it. So that's really why I picked them.
Okay. I'm staying consistent here. I gotta go. My winners of this draft is the Timberwolves. You added Rob Dillingham via the trade, and you only gave up a 2031 and a 2030 first round pick. I don't think they're worried about that right now. They're worried about going all in. They're worried about winning. They got so close, right? They're like, what do we need to add? And like I said earlier, I think they're one of their biggest things that they need to add, besides just that scar tissue, that experience of losing. I think they need to add a true scorer off the bench. Like, I actually had a podcast I did during the playoff season. I was like, man, like, can you imagine if like Jordan Clarkson was on his team, like off the bench, coming off just microwave heater up scoring? I think that they were able to get that through the draft by giving up something that kind of is irrelevant to them right now. They're trying to win, as they should be. So they go all in now by bringing in Rob, this off the bench scorer. And let's say that this going all in doesn't work. They don't get a championship out of this. Yes, they lost those two first round picks, but now they have a great young player now for the future. Like, I'm not saying you replace Ant, but you have another option if things go south. Maybe you know how prima donnas NBA players are. Like, the second, like, the management says one thing they don't like, oh, I'm going to a new team. So you never know how that could work, man. So I feel like by bringing in Rob, you not only secured the here and now by going all in, but you also secured your future. So want to give some love to the Timberwolves here, man. But Stone, I know you're a Lakers fan. You know I'm a Lakers fan. You know I have the Lakers corner. We sit in the Lakers corner right now, but right now it's clutch talk. You know what I'm saying? Because we doing clutch talk. But what I gotta ask you, Stone, is we got to get into this Lakers situation here, man. We're gonna talk about Dalton Connect Four, which they gave him the number Connect Four. I love that. But I gotta ask about Bronny first, because this is just it's big news. Like, can you just talk to me about how you're feeling about it and this whole Bronny situation?
Yeah, I had Bronny 52nd on my board numerically. So getting him at 55, not that big a deal to me. I would have much preferred somebody like Isaiah Crawford and Kevin McCullough was still on the board. Those are guys I would have definitely taken over Bronny. Um, I think Bronny is not a NBA prospect purely because of his dad. I think it definitely gives him a bump I'm not going to deny that, but I think there were worse players in this draft of prospects. I watched 75 prospects, and he was 52nd on my board. I think there were worse players to be had in this draft. I don't think he's someone I would have in most drafts drafted. I don't think he's in most draft. This is again a weaker draft, so it's a little different. But in most drafts, I would not have had him top 60, and I think he's more of like a two-way caliber type player. Um, but that said, he's not there purely because of his dad's coattails. I think there are worse players there. Um, I don't really care. Is my outlook is that they took him. It doesn't bother me that much. Um, I think that it would have really bothered me if they took him at 17. That's a full different story. But at 55, they're, you're not really getting in the last decade. The only player that stuck past the rookie contract has been Aaron Wiggins at 55. You're not really getting anybody of value typically, anyways. Um, and I think that I mean, as long as he isn't taking minutes away from other players that deserve it more, that are more talented and more ready to contribute, I don't really care. It's not that huge a deal to me, but I understand the nepotism concerns people have, and my sort of response to that is that there's bigger nepotism concerns in the Lakers organization than Bronny at 55,
Mm-hmm.
and I think Jalen Hood-Schifino last year at 17 was a worse pick than Bronny at 55 this year. So
Absolutely.
yeah, that's sort of
Absolutely.
my take on it.
Okay. I'm gonna get into this because I kind of got a lot. You know what I'm saying? So feel free to jump in at any point if you want to jump in. But first, let me say this: think that people are way overboard. They're tripping. Like just because who it is, just because that is LeBron, because it's Bronny, right? For 1 second, can everyone like stop and realize that we have a father and son on the same team? Like this is the craziest thing. Like Stone, I don't think you have kids, but I have a daughter. I have a. Do you have kids, Stone? No. Yes.
No, I'm
No.
not
Okay.
not at this time.
Okay, not at
Not
this
that I
time.
know
Not
of.
okay. Not that you know of exactly, right? So if there's some little stones out there, let us know. But if there's no little stones out there, then we're gonna proceed with the fact that Stone does not have kids. I have a baby girl, right? She's 3 years old. The love that I have for my child and the love that everyone has for their child is wild. It's through the roof, right? Now, can you imagine you as a father playing on the same team, competing at the highest possible level with your son? Like, this is the coolest thing ever. Like, I think that people are just kind of like blowing past that because they just hate LeBron James so much. They're just blowing past that. Like, bro, this is like history in the making. This is insane. We've never seen something like this. Not only is it cool for the family dynamic, but it's just cool for just NBA history in general, right? So that's what I wanted. I just wanted to kind of talk about that. The 55th pick, I don't think it's that big of a deal. Like, who are we gonna get at that point that I think is gonna was gonna be like a better fit, right? Like I don't know who to get, but it's not even about the fact that Bronny being a fit. He doesn't fit what we need. What we really need is a big. That's what we really need. And we got Dalton Connect with the shooter. Glad that was a great pickup, but we really need a big, right? To go try to go back to that 2020 team that we had, right? But I think that it's not even the fact of like, oh, it's about a fit. It's about the fact of like, you got to keep your head honcho happy. Like, you got to keep your guy happy. Like, it happens all around the NBA, not just on the Lakers. And it pisses me off, especially as a Lakers fan, the fact that like the media in the world is killing the Lakers and LeBron James right now for this nepotism when there's so much damn nepotism all around the NBA. Giannis and his brother Thanasis. Thanasis would not be in the league if it wasn't for Giannis. But why are the Bucks keeping him? Because they want him to be happy, right? Okay, let's go back a couple of years when J.R. Smith was on the Knicks. Do you remember when they signed Chris Smith, his brother, who they said arguably was one of the worst NBA players? But guess what? He was on the Knicks. There was no complaining about that. Or let's talk about front offices, because this is the craziest one right here. Check this out. I don't know if you know who Travis Slank is, but Travis Slank was the president of the Hawks, the basketball operations from 2020 to 2022. He drafted players like Trae Young, John Collins, DeAndre Hunter, Kevin Herter. Like, he made the big trades that helped them get Bowie and brought them a lot closer to the being a contender. It brought them to the best that they have been in a long, long, long time. And then late in 2022, Nick Ressler, the son of Tony Ressler, the owner of the Hawks, fired Travis Slankham and hired his son, Nick Ressler, with less than 3 years of experience, and not a single soul talked about it. No Stephen A. Smith, no ESPN, no Bleacher Report coverage. Nobody talked about it. We don't have to necessarily get into the whole race card, like whether white or black or whatnot. I'm just gonna strictly stay on the fact of like, y'all just hating because it's LeBron James, and y'all just hating because it's the Lakers, and it pisses me off. It pisses me off as a Lakers fan. It pisses me off as somebody who just wants to, admire LeBron James achieving a dream of playing with his child. It pisses me off, man, because there's so much other nepotism in the NBA, and now they're gonna sit here and act like this is the only nepotism that happens. It's crazy. With that whole Travis Slank situation, bro. Travis Slank worked his way up from a scout to the president of basketball operations. It took him 2 decades. This Nick Ressler guy had less than 3 years of experience and became the basketball president. He became the president of basketball operations, and still to this day he is. Still to this day. So that's just crazy to me, man. So I kind of just had to get off on that because I just hate it. And as far as like Bronny, like the player that he'll be, I think he'll be an all right player, like a right, role player. But it's the expectations are just unfair. Like the bar is just set so ridiculously high. Even if this dude comes out here and plays like John Morant and he's like a good player, everyone's gonna be like, you're a failure. Like everyone's still gonna hold him to that expectation. It's all about, it's relative to what we see. It's relative to our expectations, man. And it's just, I mean, no matter how you look at it, right? I think LeBron James is the greatest player of all time. So my expectation is up there. Someone may think he's like top 5 at the absolute least. Like, so you want Bronny, a 55th pick, to be a top 5 best player of all time in NBA history? Come on, let's just be realistic. I think he'll be a solid role player in this league. Might not happen first year. But besides that, I think people are blowing away overboard. Sorry, I went on too long of a spiel, brother.
No, you're good. And yeah, you're totally right with the nepotism everywhere. Arn Tellem is another one. I think Pistons, and he hired his son to be, I think, the lead scout for them, and then worked his way up into another role. And then Damian Lillard's cousin was on the Trailblazers for like 3 years, doing absolutely nothing, picking splinters off the bench. And then there was the Warriors owner, one of
Jacob
their.
Acom.
I don't know if it was him. It was one of the members of ownership. I can't remember exactly. His son was a scout for them. Really believed in a player who very few people listening will probably know of, named Alan Smilajic. Smilajic was drafted by them because his son really believed in him. Never became anything. So there's tons of nepotism across the league, and I think that a guy taken 55th is sort of the least of the concerns with that. I don't think Bronny's an NBA player. I don't think most players taken at 55 are going to be anyways, though. So that's sort of my take on it.
Straight up, man. That's a great take. That is a great take. Most players taking at 55 are just not NBA players. So great take on that, Stone. And then before we get out of here, Stone, because we started talking about the Lakers, let's talk about the shooter. Let's talk about Connect 4, Dalton Connect. How do you feel about that draft pick and just him as a player? Like, do you have any like scouting analysts on that? Talk to us about that. Educate us here, Stone.
Yeah, for sure. I like Connect quite a bit. He, I really liked the pick. He would not have been my first choice. I think I would have preferred Collier, or Dayron Holmes is another guy I really wanted. But Connect is someone I'm still very happy with, especially considering the fact that I was really just praying that we wouldn't. Half of my joy of taking Connect was that we didn't draft Jacoby Walter because I thought we were going to. Somebody I do not really like as a prospect. And so when we got Connect, I was very happy. He's an older player. I think the oldest player in the draft. I could be wrong, but if not, he's very close. He'll be 24 by the end of his rookie season. He worked a lot. He played 4 years at JUCO to finally work into obviously going to Tennessee. A lot of that was due to the fact that academically he wasn't meeting the requirements, and he worked really hard and got tutors and really worked hard to bring those academic grades up to be eligible. at Tennessee. He blew up. If it weren't for Zach Edey absolutely dominating, I think he probably would have been National Player of the Year. He is he's a shooter, but he's a lot more than a shooter offensively. I think people tend to think of shooters as guys that are just, in the corner hitting off ball shots, and that's sort of all they can do on offense. And I think Connect offers a lot more than that. He is a really good shooter. He has great core contortion that allows him to change direction in the air. So he has a lot of movement equity coming off of screens, curls, and pin downs. He has a lot of power generated through his legs. He's very athletic, actually. So because of that, he's able to be a really solid finisher. Has a lot of confidence in the mid range. What I like about him most is he plays at his own tempo. He's not rushed by defenses. He'll get a shot that he feels is quality, even if the defense is right up in him, and he still is going at his own pace. Similar to like when you watch Luka. Luka is he doesn't let the defense dictate when he's going to shoot. He dictates that. And I like that about Connect as well. I'm not saying Connect is Luka by any means, but
you heard it here first. Here,
yeah.
Stone said Connect is going to be better than Luka.
Connect Luka. But and then defensively, there's issues for sure. I think he can be okay against wings. Outside of that, I think it's going to be tough for him against quicker guys. Despite what I said athletically, he's not the best lateral mover. He's really good. He north and south mover, not quite east and west. I think that he's really explosive off of 1 foot and off of 2 feet as a dunker. There's a lot to like about him offensively. I think he's a 3-level scorer offensively who has issues as a defender. He can make the right passes. At Tennessee, though, he was put in a context where he was solely relied to be as a scorer. So we didn't get to see a ton of that. I think there's more passing equity there that we didn't get to see, but I don't think he's like above average or anything.
I like them. I honestly, I really liked Dalton Connect as a pick. I legitimately, I know it might sound crazy, but like I was really nervous, and I was actually following your Twitter with Gerald during the live stream of all your tweets. And I know I saw you were also nervous coming up to the 17th pick. But I was genuinely nervous because I really thought that there was a chance that they were going to take Bronny at 17, not because he's like that good of a basketball player, but because they don't want nobody else to take him. Like I really, really thought, I was like, damn, like please just don't let this happen. Just don't let this happen. Like, and
that's where I would be upset
yeah,
if they took him that high.
Exactly, right? Like, and that's what I was gonna be upset on, and that's what I really thought was gonna happen because Rich Paul is all calling teams saying, "Don't take Bronny, don't take Bronny." Like, what? Like, what do you mean, don't take Bronny? Like, you know what I'm saying? So I really thought that maybe Rich Paul and LeBron and LeBron's camp was able to swindle the Lakers and say, you know what, just take him at 17, so nobody takes him. But I'm so happy it didn't happen, and we took Dr. Connect. And I'll be honest with you, like I said earlier, don't watch much college hoops. I only seen him in the Elite Eight, and from what I've seen and from the the research I've been doing since then, is that we talking about a shooter. We talking about a 6'5" shooter who can pull up on the dot, like off the dribble, catch a shoot, like how you mentioned, off the pin downs, off curls. And do you know who we just brought in as a coach? We brought in JJ Redick. He made a career off that. He made a career off coming off pin downs and shooting and coming off these curl screens and these drag screens and just doing everything and catching a shoot. Also shooting off the dribble. But guess what? It's so like the coach matches the player that we just brought on. Cool. I think that's going to work. But even if like we freaking still had that scumbag Darvin Ham and who doesn't know how to drop a single play in the world, Dalton would still be a good solid pickup because what happens when LeBron James and Anthony Davis runs a high pick and roll and LeBron James got his head down going downhill? Defense is going to crash in, and then LeBron notoriously has shooters around him, and you add a Dalton Connect right there, boom, like that's much better than having a Jarrett Vanderbilt right there. That's much better than having those players that we were forced to have out there, but now we're able to bring him in. He fits the mold of the team of LeBron and AD, but also fits the mold of the coach. I think it's just going to be a perfect fit, to be honest with you. It's going to take some time for it to work out, but I think it's going to be less of a learning curve than any other rookie because, like how you mentioned, he's one of the oldest players in this draft, and I I've always seen, and it's not a coincidence, like those 4-year guys or those 3-year guys are always just so much more polished, and they come into the league a lot more ready to contribute. So I think that that Dalton Connect will be big contributor for us, and hopefully some way somehow get us back to that finals, right? I mean,
Yeah,
that's what we're looking to do, catch the Celtics now.
absolutely, and it's fun to be excited about a rookie again. Like it's been a while since we've been able to have that, so I'm excited to watch him. And we haven't had young players. I mean, Reeves was cool, but he wasn't a pick. He was
Yeah.
undrafted free agency. So to be excited about a pick is something we're not used to.
It's big time, man. It's big time. Man, Stone, I want to thank you. I want to appreciate you, you know what I'm saying, for not only just educating me, but educating all the family out there listening. And for the family out there, you know, if you guys stay throughout the whole episode, I appreciate you guys. We just wanted to really get into, you know, some NBA draft coverage. Got into some of the best players, some of the underrated players, some slept on players, the bus and all that, man. So hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Stone, do you have any last words to say before we get out of here?
Not really. Just thank you for having me. I enjoyed talking draft. And yeah, I appreciate you taking the time to have me on.
Absolutely. Always, always, Stone. Always going to have you on. Very great friend of mine, first of all, but also very smart basketball mind. And if you guys want to stay up to date with everything that Stone's got going on, like I said, I will link his description. I keep doing the wrong side. I will link everything under his little square right there. His Twitter for the podcast users. Stone, it's at report_court, correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay, got you. Yeah, for the podcast users, it's at report_court. You guys make sure you guys stay up to date with everything that Stone, you know, tweets out, all his basketball knowledge he shares for the world, man. But for now, we're out of here, and I'll catch y'all next time. Peace.